Welcome everybody to this hopefully quite a short webinar. What we're hoping to do this afternoon is to talk you through the context for the support package and to give you a bit of an overview about the contents of the support package. So to do that, I've asked Sharon Smith to come along and join me, and she's going to talk specifically to the slides which refer to the rubric. My name's Elaine Napier. I'm in the early career team, and my remit, if you like, is working with the students and the probationers. So obviously I'm really interested in the experience that they've had going into this session. Before we hit lockdown as such, we were aware that as soon as the placements became disrupted from March onwards, that it was going to have a direct impact on both teacher induction scheme and flexible routes starting in August. And I suppose from the middle of March onwards, we've been kind of second guessing a bit as to how probationers were going to be feeling, what the impact's going to be like in schools. Indeed, if schools were actually even going to be open in August. So we've been reacting probably quite quickly in terms of looking at support that we can put in place. And we had some things in place for starting in August, and something that we had thought about early on was that from August to December is always a long time for a probationer to go without getting official feedback, if you like, in terms of how they're actually doing in terms of a recommendation. So what we thought we would do would be to actually formalise a return in October, which I know many schools already have an October progress report or a check-in point in place, but that was never returned to the GTC. We never asked for that. But what we've done this year is we've set up this early progress report to ask for an official return so that we can help to support probationers who would benefit from an additional input. We've also been very aware, of course, with how difficult it is in schools at the moment, just managing with a situation that's changing daily. And I won't even pretend to understand probably how difficult that actually is. I've obviously not been having to deal with it in a day-to-day, and probably the best I can say is that I'm really aware of it and I try and take it into account whenever we're planning things, but you know, I appreciate how difficult that must be, and that you're just absolutely dealing with the unknown. The other thing that we've been doing is, so we meet with the probation managers from every local authority. We meet with them regularly, at least once a month. And we've put a lot of time into listening to them to hear what they're actually saying. And I suppose they're our sort of direct link with schools. So things that you share with probation managers just about concerns, about the context, about how probationers are feeling, that all gets fed back to us. And at the start of the session in August, we had a lot of calls from probation managers talking about the anxieties that probationers have got, how unprepared some probationers seem to be when they stepped into the classroom, and the lack of placement experience that some seem to have had. Where we've had to just try and, I suppose, communicate the views of the university is that every probationer who has started teacher induction scheme or flexible route this year has met the standard for provisional registration, and that's a given. That was something that we stressed really strongly with universities, was that anybody coming through on the pass list for TIS or FR, that they have met the standard for provisional registration. But I know that the reality, from what the probation managers have been saying, has been quite different and has been looking a bit different in the schools. So we've taken that on board as well. So what we have come up with is a support package that we want to share in a very positive way. The last thing we wanted to do is to cause more anxiety or worry to the group of probationers who are being targeted through this. So the language that we've very much been using has been about giving them a boost, by providing additional support, giving their progress a bit of a boost, so that hopefully by Christmas, when their interim 1 is submitted, they will have or they will be making satisfactory progress to enable them to get a satisfactory as they move on to the second part of their probation. Different local authorities have used different language, and I think it's very easy to fall into the language that the probationer is causing concern. It's just to point out that at this stage, if you look at the form, what we're trying to say is that they would benefit from some additional support, because realistically at this stage in the year there's a huge amount of time ahead of them. So we really do hope that there's enough time that with your help, with some additional support, that we can hopefully get their progress back on track, and by the end of the year that they will have met the standard for full registration. I have to say right at the start, we absolutely realise that you are the key people, no pressure, but you are the key people in making the difference to these probationers. We know that we can keep providing resources, and that we can give as much help as we can to probationers, but we think that the relationship that you have with them is probably the key thing within this support package. So please, if there's something that you feel would be of great benefit for you, just let us know, and if we can provide it, we certainly will try. But just want to start off with a big thank you to you for, I can only imagine the huge amount of time that this is taking in terms of supporting the probationers. You're probably aware that there's been a programme running for probationer supporters as well in terms of webinars. We're partway through that, but we have recorded all of those webinars, so they are on our YouTube channel, and indeed you'll find links on our website and on Into Teaching, so have a look there if you're not aware of those, and we have some more coming up as well, so hopefully you'll feel the benefits of those as we go through. So the support package itself is in 4 stages. The first was the early progress report, which was completed by schools and submitted to us by the 2nd of October. We've then got 3 reflective films that we have had produced for GTC, for the probationers, that we've shared. We have a rubric that has had really positive feedback so far, and that was Sharon Smith, who's joined us today. That was Sharon's key role in this, was to develop the rubric, so she'll talk us through that part shortly. And the 4th stage of the support package is a coaching conversation, which we have set up between probationers and Sarah Philp, a professional coach. So that's what the support package on offer looks like. I should say that the package is not mandatory in terms of a GTC expectation. It's an offer that we're putting out there, that we're making available. We're not enforcing that these probationers must engage with the films or the rubric or the coaching conversation, but we hope very much that they will. We've obviously shared these links with probation managers to pass on to yourselves as supporters, and we've also we've got an update as such from Sarah Philp, who's doing the coaching, and we've sent that update to probation managers I think it was at the end of last week, just to let them know who had engaged in coaching conversations in terms of signing up, so that as a local authority, if they wish to chase that up, then they can. It's absolutely in the interest of the probationer to engage in the package. First of all, we obviously really hope that it's going to help them. The coaching conversation in particular just gives them a really safe space in which they can share how they're feeling, open up emotionally if they want to, but focus on success as well and what their next steps are. So we really hope that they will choose to engage, and I suppose there's that bit of the teacher professional as well, that we hope that as a professional, when they're offered this extra support, that they will choose to take it, because if they aren't successful at the end of their year, I think it's not going to help them if they've had, you know, this offer of support that they've not actually taken. So we'll see how many take it up so far, but hopefully most of them. So this is just a picture of the early progress report, which you'll be familiar with, that every probationer has had completed. So we asked probation managers to share this with every probationer and supporter, and we asked that it was completed for every probationer. So even if they are satisfactory, which, you know, we hope most of them will be, there's over 3,000 probationers. So we didn't ask for all of the forms to come back to us. We've asked that any that are ticking that box, that a higher level of support is required for the probationer. If they tick that, I'm sorry, it's not come out quite as clearly on the screen, but if that box was ticked, we've asked that those forms are returned to us at the GTC. So we had just over 200. We've had a few more come trickling in since the 2nd of October. So slightly over 200 have come back to us. In all honesty, it's probably not as high a figure as we feared right at the beginning in August, when I think schools were pretty concerned about some of their probationers. So it's slightly lower than perhaps it could have been, but it's definitely higher than I would have said a typical return would have been at this time of year. So there's definitely a bit of work and support there to be done. So you'll be aware that how that was completed, it was broken down into the 3 areas of the standard, and that's the bit that we're really interested in, and just to look at how we can support them. And because the standard is such a big document, if you like, we very much refer as we go on to the 3 areas. So either values and personal commitment, knowledge and understanding, or skills and abilities as we go through. So we asked Hugh Smith, who is an ITE consultant. He produced 3 reflective films for us. There's been a bit of an issue in terms of accessing the films. It turns out that the YouTube links that we had were only showing the films for 5 minutes each. So they should be showing for roughly 30 minutes. We've shared those links again with probationers. We've shared those links again with probation managers, and those should make their way through to you. They're also, I think, on the website as well. If you have had a look at them, or at one of them, because that's really the idea, is that the probationer would, on receiving the links to these films, they would have a look at their progress report, see which area it is which has been suggested as requiring additional support. So if it's knowledge and understanding, for example, that would be the video that they would prioritise in watching. And as somebody said to me, that the music is quite dramatic. They said it's like being on The Apprentice or something. So we were quite pleasantly surprised with the videos that Hugh produced, and hopefully you are too. They are the first step in helping the probationer to engage, basically, and to reflect and to think about where they are, what comes next, what they can take responsibility for. So there's a few breaks as they go through the video to give them a chance just to think, to make a few notes. But key for us through this whole process is that the thoughts that they have in watching the film, or any notes that they make while watching the film, our hope would be that they then take that to their next supporter meeting, their next mentor meeting, to talk through with you. You might want to watch the films and have your own thoughts about where the probationer is, what they might be thinking, but we'd really like them to strengthen that relationship with you, and to think about their supporter meeting as being a safe place that they can really open up about what their initial thoughts are. So those are the 3 reflective films. When we first emailed the probationers, what we asked was that in advance of the coaching session, they should watch the relevant film and they should use the rubric as well. So those are the two tasks that they've got. The coaching sessions started last week and they go on until the 10th of December. So even if they've not got a coaching conversation until later on, they can still reflect on these films just now. That, you know, we'd encourage that. The earlier they do that, hopefully the sooner that starts them actually thinking about where they are and what their next steps are. So just in case you haven't got the links, I'll leave that up. You might want to just take a photo of that to get the links, and that'll take you into the three videos. But as I say, they are with probation managers, and they'll share those with you if they haven't already. Okay, I can pop those up again at the end if that would help. So I'm going to pass on to Sharon, who's going to talk us through the rubric and how this was created and how it can be used. Thanks, Sharon.
No problem. Hi everybody, my name's Sharon Smith. I'm one of the Senior Education Officers here at GTTS. Now, Elaine asked me if I would help her with the rubric because this is something I actually had attempted to use previously in my previous life as a probation manager in local authority and also as a supporter in schools when I was in school. Many moons ago, I went on a course on how to create rubrics, and one of my homework tasks I decided was to create a rubric about the standards for full registration so that I could support the probationers who I was working with in schools. So basically what we have here is a revised version of what I used in schools, and I used this as a self-evaluation rubric to help my probationers identify where their key strengths were and where their areas for development were. So in essence, instead of myself having to identify along with them, they did that piece of self-evaluation, and immediately we had a visual that we could use as a point of reference when we were creating our IPDAP and PDAP. So I have worked alongside 3 probation managers in 3 local authorities across Scotland to pull this together. It is an exercise on semantics, I have to say, but certainly that you should be able to see progress within each of the columns devised. We have created this front page. It's an extremely long document, and I apologise for that, but equally we've made it like that so that each of the standards sits in one page so that you can pick and choose which bits you use as you go if you want to do it all together in one piece of work, or you can chunk it so that it's easier and less overwhelming for your probationers and for yourselves while you're supporting. We have put a health warning on here saying basically it's good to do this piece of self-evaluation, but do it to talk about it, because there's nothing worse than somebody who feels that they are struggling and has identified that they're not progressing and then starts to worry about it. That's not going to do any good for their mental health, and we would want them to be sharing that and discussing about what they can do to access further support if required. So on this front cover you have, it's very small, but just an example of how this might be used. So basically it's either a highlighting on the PDF or it's printing off and highlighting. We have 2 colours here as an example, one to be done now in one colour, so you would highlight across the document, and it's not linear. We're not linear people, where your probationers will identify across this piece where they are. Use one colour for one piece of self-evaluation and then use another colour for the next piece of self-evaluation. Hopefully on the same document you'll be able to see the transition from sort of less strengths to more strengths as you move through the rubric. So Elaine, if you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide, please. The first part of the rubric is the professional values. Now this has been set out slightly differently to the other 2 sections, and that's because the professional values actually cross across all of the professional standards. So it's difficult for us to put into columns what that might look like as you you meet the standard, because actually it's the same professional values across the standard. So this is taking a slightly different stance of, okay, here's all of the professional values and personal commitment broken down. How do I demonstrate these values? So the probationer is asking perhaps, or would demonstrate those by writing and exemplifying how they might demonstrate those values in their day-to-day interactions and practice. And at the bottom we've got, okay, so what now? What have I discovered and what will I do next? So this is a little bit about action planning, about what they might do in order to evaluate where they are now with regards to the professional values and where they would like to go in the future to ensure that they meet those. Elaine, could you pass on to the next section, please? So the professional knowledge and understanding section, as well as the professional skills and attributes, which is the next one on the slide, are basically set out in the same format. So what you have is across the top, you've got standard broken down. The left-hand column is actually the standard for provisional registration. And as Elaine said, all of your probationers have been identified as having achieved the standard for provisional registration. However, we decided to put the descriptor in this rubric because some of your probationers may be still in that place at a certain given time when they're doing these self-evaluations. So we just wanted to have that worded and identified in that column there, so that if that's where they are self-evaluating themselves to be, then that's fine. As you move across to the right, you have on the very far right-hand column the descriptors of what the standard for full registration might look like. So what we've done is we've broken down that standard into different separate sections, as you can see, all the different rows. And where we've been able to, we've tried to identify what that might look like in practice and or make links to any resources that we have at the General Teaching Council Scotland that might be able to help. So for example, in this one, there is a link to the document. So I'm trying to read the writing, it's in small script, of the knowledge of rights-based approaches to learning. So we have a professional guide that you might want to look at there to support the learning there. Now, between the left-hand column and the right-hand column, we've got different gradients of what that success might look like in achieving the standard for full registration, and that's the journey that your probationer will be on. Elaine, if you move on to the next column, you can just see that the professional skills and attributes are just coloured in a different colour, just to split them up. I would reckon this would be the one they would be starting with initially, because that's their practice highlighted there really. And it might be the easier one for them to engage in initially and then working into the other ones. But these are to tell a story. What we are very clear about is that these are self-evaluation tools. It's not for the supporter to do, because what we would never want is, if there were issues regarding achieving the standard for full registration in the future, this should never ever feature as a piece of evidence, because it's self-evaluation only. And I hope I've covered anything. Is there anything, Elaine, that you think I may have missed?
No, I think that's really helpful, Sharon. It's just a shame the writing's so small on the screen. Yeah. I'm sorry about that, but at least hopefully people that are joining us have got copies so they can see. But it's good just to again stress that they have met the SPR on the left-hand side, so it's about that journey on towards the right-hand side. So that's great. Thank you.
Just to finish up, I think what I always find really useful is to allow my probationer the time and space to complete these, and then have, as a supporter, have that open and honest but supportive conversation. So to be able to provide that safe, supportive space for your probationer to be absolutely honest about where they think they are, and then for you to support that conversation. And what you might find is your probationers being extremely hard on themselves and not able to self-evaluate successfully, or as far as your opinion is concerned. And so there's dialogue and discussion sometimes required round about that. So nothing should be set in tablets of stone. These are really a starter for a conversation.
I suppose, Sharon, one of the things that they could do is, if the probationer completes one and as a supporter they complete one, it's really like the coaching wheels, isn't it? It's really interesting to see perhaps the difference. And I know sometimes the supporters say that no matter how honest a conversation they feel that they're having, or how blunt they're being, that sometimes the probationers actually think they're doing okay with something, and as a supporter you might be quite concerned about an area. So that's sometimes a way of just broaching it, or being able to say, actually, that's not how it's coming across. But
Yeah.
I'd be interested as well to hear if you've got different ways of using it, so that we can share those ideas as well. But
Absolutely.
thanks, Sharon. It's been, again, we had a meeting with some of the probation managers this afternoon, and again it was the rubric that was highlighted, and what was coming out there, we basically said that although this package is being targeted at the 200 who've been highlighted as benefiting from support, with the exception of the coaching opportunity, we're absolutely delighted if these resources, the films and the rubric, can be used to a wider audience. So people were saying that they've used the rubric, to share with all their probationers, and just using that as a reflective tool, which is great. And I mean, there's nothing, to stop that being used with, right across the country, with people. So
absolutely, I would say the right-hand column, don't get hung up on them not being there, everybody being in that right-hand column, because these are very slight semantics between column and column, and actually it would be very unfair and unjust to not pass or suggest that somebody has attained full registration because they haven't actually highlighted the whole of the right-hand column. That's it's all about your discussion, your monitoring, your observations, seeing what happens. It's the whole package. This is just a tiny little self-evaluation tool that contributes to those conversations.
That's great. Thanks, Sharon. Really appreciate your input. Okay, so on to the final part of the package, and that's the coaching conversation. So probationers have been, in the email that they received on the 2nd of November, they've been invited to click on a link which takes them through to Sarah Phillips' website. She has it all set up with all the dates. She's basically providing a number of days for us between last week and the 10th of December. And on those dates, she has blocked out times between 8 AM and 6 PM. So she's trying to give those opportunities that, it doesn't have to be within a school day, that the probationers can find a suitable time. It was done on a first come, first served basis, which I think worked well in terms of encouraging people to engage. I think we're up at about 135 yesterday who had taken up the coaching opportunity. So that was good, but there's still a way to go. We've shared with probation managers, those that hadn't signed up last week, they may have signed up now, but they've probably shared that with you. There are some who could still take up that opportunity. Because of the number of probationers that there are, to fit in 200 coaching conversations is a lot. We had originally hoped to provide an hour for each probationer, but we've reduced that down to 30 minutes. And what we've done is Sarah has offered 3 drop-in sessions as well. So probationers can sign up for their one-to-one, but there are 3 other dates which are on Sarah's website, which probationers can choose to either drop in and have a conversation with Sarah, or they can go from start to finish of that hour's drop-in session. And that's basically an opportunity for them to either have their coaching conversation and then go to the drop-in to say, what I spoke about as being my next steps isn't working, or I'm still concerned about this, or I'm still concerned about that. And get a bit of support, not just from Sarah, but from other probationers that are in that call as well. I think it would be fair to say that the feedback that Sarah has given me so far is that I think what we had expected was that probationers would come along to these conversations focused, if you like, on their next steps or what their action plan was, in terms of, this is the area where I still need to make more progress, and this is what I'm thinking that will help me to get there. And to be completely honest, I think most of the probationers so far are quite a way off that. Sarah's been saying that they're really quite emotional, many of them that are coming along. Whether that's because they're getting a safe, they're almost saving themselves up and building up to this safe space. There's been a lot of emotion, a lot of tears, a lot of talking, which is great. I think Sarah feels that a lot of the time she's listening. I was going to say just listening, but listening is so important. She's listening to what they have to say. And for some, she's actually offering them the chance to sign in for another coaching conversation, because I think on occasion there's been a couple who've been really emotional, and Sarah feels that they do need a bit more. It'll be interesting to see if it could be that the people who've signed up for the first coaching conversations are perhaps the ones that are most anxious, and that's why they've gone for earlier dates. So it'll be interesting to see if that levels out as we move through the next couple of weeks. But yeah, Sarah's found it really interesting, and there are some common themes coming out. There's a lot of self-doubt from the probationers about if they can actually do it. Time management is a concern about, they feel that they are working so many hours, they're in a bit of a spiral where they're not really achieving much. So Sarah's very much working with them to try and chunk it down so that they can look at actually what would count as a success, what can I do, what can I achieve, and just overall confidence is lacking. So that's kind of how the probationers are feeling. They've obviously had a bit of a disrupted start from the end of their student experience, and I think they're struggling as well with just dealing with COVID in terms of perhaps not getting the family support that they would normally have. So I think for us it's been quite an eye-opener in that they're finding it difficult to really reflect on specific aspects. So you may feel that some of the tools we've introduced here, the films and the rubric, might actually be more useful later on. And if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. These are there to help you. So what we have committed to doing is that in December we're basically going to review where we are and what our next steps are going to be. In our initial plan, we had seen this as a package that was offered until December, and then we would withdraw in terms of support, because at the end of the day, if the probationer is going to gain full registration, they have to be able to evidence, standing on their own, that they can meet the SFR. I think from what we're hearing so far, we're kind of looking at maybe there's a bit of support we could put in for some in January and February, and then leave them to and then withdraw completely. So very early days, we've still to have a conversation around that, but we'll do some sort of review in December, and very much engaging with probation managers to get feedback from them. So I suppose our ask would be that if you have feedback that you would like to be considered, please, if you can share that with your probation manager, they'll definitely feed that back with us, or feel free to contact us directly. It'll be lovely to have a conversation with you. We're going to move on very shortly to just if there are any questions that we can help to answer, we'd be delighted to do that. But I really at this stage just want to give you a huge thank you for everything that you're doing. I hope you can see through this support package how much we are relying on you, and how much we value the input that you're giving. So from everybody at the GTC, thank you very, very much for all your time that you're spending with the probationer. Kirsty, I'm going to hand back to you now to hopefully take us through some questions.
Yeah, we only have the one just now, but you can still submit questions via the question box if there is anything you'd like to ask. So someone's just asking about the rubric, where they might be able to access it, or if we can share it with them at all.
Yeah, so the rubric has been sent out as an attachment to all probation managers and to all probationers that have been highlighted in the early progress report. So that will actually already be with their probationer, so they can get it that way, definitely.
I've also just popped the slides into the handout section, so if anyone's on a computer or anything, it should be there, but I will add the link to download the slides along with the recording on YouTube as well. So because anybody watching right now will get a follow-up email in a couple of days with that link to it. So that'll all be there for people to rewatch and download as well. I don't think we have any more questions. Elaine, I was just going to put up the link to the next webinar.
Yeah.
That's kind of the question and answer related to any of this, if that's all.
Yeah, so absolutely. Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks for the reminder. What we planned was that we've put the other date in for the 9th of December. And that was really just there as a follow-up. If either there's things that you would like to share with us, or if you've got any questions just about the probationers' progress in general, you know, more than happy to help in any way that we can. So that opportunity will be there, and it may be that you want to come along and, you know, drop in and out, if you like, of that session. It doesn't have to be that you're committing to an hour, but it's there for the 9th of December in case you want to join us.
Yeah, I've just popped that registration link there as well, just now, just in the chat pane, so anyone will be able to access that if they would like to sign up. And you can also find any other webinars that we're running on the GTCS website. If you click on news at the top and then scroll down to events, any webinars that we have coming up, non-probationer ones as well, they'll all be there for you to register as well. So I don't have any more questions sitting waiting to be answered. So I think I'll just thank Elaine and Sharon for presenting today's webinar. There'll be a short survey that pops up at the end where you can leave some feedback for us. It's really helpful, and we appreciate any feedback that you'd like to share. If you'd like to share any additional feedback, you can contact me at communications@gtcs.org.uk and with any other questions that might pop into your head after this ends. But yes, I hope to have the recording up within the next couple of days, like I said, for anybody who wants to go back and watch. So I think that's it.
That's great. Thanks, Kirsty. Appreciate that.
Everyone. Have a lovely evening.
You.
Bye.
Bye.